What's up guys, it's Chris Majestic, and today we're finally checking out the Awol Vision Ultra Short Throw 4K laser projector. So this was one of the projectors from the Ultra Short Throw laser shootout last year, and even though it didn't win the shootout, it still performed really well, especially for a brand we've never heard before. So there are two versions of this projector. The 2500 lumen version is priced around $3,000, and the 3500 comes with a pretty hefty $5,500 price tag, and that doesn't include a screen. But the screen I'll be using with this today is the 100-inch Spectra Vantage CLR screen, which is the same screen that we used in the projector shootout. Now when it comes to design, I think the Awol has a pretty cool design language. It's definitely one of the more futuristic looking projectors with its slope lines, sweeping curves, and black finish. The top of course hides the recessed lens as well as a power button on the front right corner. The front has a pretty unique looking rounded off design that hides the 36-watt stereo speakers. The right side has a single USB port, and of course the rest of the ports are on the back. So you get an optical audio output, another USB port, Ethernet port, an analog audio video input, two HDMI 2.0B ports with eARC support, and hidden behind a small door is the third HDMI port, which is reserved for the included Fire TV stick. So the Awol Vision LTV 3500 has some pretty impressive specs. It uses the popular 0.47-inch DLP chip from Texas Instruments, so it uses pixel shifting to display a 4K image. It also has a triple laser light engine, which is capable of producing up to 3,500 ANSI lumens. It supports HDR10, HDR10 Plus, HLG, and Awol announced that Dolby Vision will be released soon via an over-the-air firmware update. And you hashtag Team 3D guys out there will be happy to know that 3D isn't dead, since the Awol comes with 3D support. And even though I'm not a huge Fire Stick fan, it's definitely one of the better options, and I had no issues getting it connected to Wi-Fi and streaming 4K movies from my favorite streaming apps. But it does have some limitations though. What I ended up doing in the long run was just connecting my Nvidia Shield to the projector and using that. Now when it comes to the included remote, there are quite a few buttons and the button layout is fine. I do wish the remote was backlit though, especially at this price point. So when I first turned on the Awol, I was greeted with a fancy startup animation accompanied by a loud startup sound. Now considering I shoot these videos in the middle of the night, the startup sound almost woke up my 2-year-old, so thankfully it can be turned off. But once this projector did boot up, I immediately noticed just how bright this thing is. I measured around 3,300 ANSI lumens, which I think makes this the brightest 4K ultra short throw that we've reviewed on the channel so far. Not only was it bright, but the colors were vivid without being oversaturated. And since this projector has a motorized focus system, you can project an image anywhere from 80 to 150 inches and use the focus menu to get the focus dialed in. But once I finally got it right, I was blown away by the sharpness and focus uniformity from this projector. This is a place where a lot of ultra short throws fail, but this one stood out as definitely one of the sharpest. And the projector has 6 picture modes. Vivid mode actually didn't look horrible like it does on other projectors, but it did seem to boost the shadows a bit. Movie mode had a warmer color temp, but it seemed to be a bit too green and still required a bit of color tweaking to get it to my liking. And standard mode does great during the daytime as it has enough brightness to cut through the ambient light. But I found it best to use the user picture mode since it has the most options. And before I jump too deep into image quality, I do want to let you know that this projector is running a brand new firmware from Awol, and this firmware came with enhancements to the black levels, input lag, and movie reproduction. So once I finally got the color and focus dialed in, I threw on some SDR content, and I was blown away by how bright and vivid the colors are from this projector. What's really impressive is that it's not only bright, but it has fantastic color accuracy, which is not an easy feat. The only thing I could really nitpick about was that the white balance was leaning a bit more to the blue side, and changing the white balance to hot seemed to add a bit too much green for my liking. But when it comes to these new ultra short throw laser TVs, I think brightness and sharpness are two of the most important metrics, considering they're often marketed as TV replacements, and in this regard the Awol is really impressive. So next up was HDR testing, and the HDR performance was also pretty good from this projector. There are 4 HDR settings. I found that the auto and middle settings appeared to produce the same image. The high setting produced too much contrast and seemed to crush shadow detail, and the low setting was much brighter but boosted the shadows a bit too much for nighttime viewing. But if you find yourself watching HDR during the day in a room with a lot of ambient light, then the low setting will probably work best since it cut through the ambient light a bit better. Now with HDR, I did find that I preferred a bit more color saturation, so I did boost the color a tiny bit, but this thing produced a bright and natural looking HDR image. So it's been quite a while since I've tested an ultra short throw projector with 3D support, so I was kind of excited to test it out. One of the biggest trade-offs with 3D is brightness, since it dims the image, but the extra brightness from this projector offsets it nicely so it's less noticeable. There's just something about watching 3D on a huge screen that changes the entire movie experience, and it's kind of sad that less and less projectors are equipped with this technology. When it comes to black levels, I was expecting it to be pretty bad considering it's arguably one of the brightest ultra short throws out there, but the black levels were better than I thought. Now the black levels weren't amazing, but despite its lower contrast, they weren't terrible. And when it comes to gaming, I had high hopes considering the brightness, sharpness, and colors from this projector, and it didn't let me down. Now before applying the firmware update that I got from Awol, I got an input lag around 33 milliseconds, but after applying the firmware update, I got an input lag of 17 milliseconds in 4K, which is really impressive. And if you're looking for even less input lag, Awol tells me that you can get 8 milliseconds if you're doing 1080p at 120 Hz. And the fact that it has so much brightness, vivid color, and excellent focus uniformity means you can go crazy big on the screen size and play your favorite games at 150 inches. And moving on to the built-in 36-watt speakers. So I threw on some of my favorite movie scenes for testing audio, and even though the speakers from this projector do get crazy loud, the sound seemed to be a bit too boosted in the mid-range. Now it's fine if you plan on taking it to a friend's house or something like that or traveling with it, but if you plan on keeping it permanently in a living room or a home theater, then like I say with most projectors, your experience will be greatly improved with the home theater speaker setup. Bright projectors are usually notorious for annoyingly loud fans, and even though I could definitely hear it from my seat about 8 feet away, I never found the fan noise to be distracting or bothersome, which is kind of surprising considering its brightness. Alright, so this is the part of the video that most manufacturers probably hate, where I talk about the downsides of the product or things I don't like. And since no projector is perfect, the Awol is no exception. My first issue you probably could have guessed, and that's the price. With a $5,500 price tag, I think it's priced itself out of the hands of most people, especially considering it's a new brand that no one's ever heard of. When you consider the fact that you need to buy a screen and possibly some home theater speakers on top of the $5,500 or $5,200 price when it's on sale, the cost starts to add up. My other concern is the menu system. Now this isn't a huge deal since you probably really won't find yourself navigating through the menus that often after you get it set up, but I found it to be a bit cumbersome trying to get to all the settings. Some of the settings will be grayed out in certain modes, and some settings seem to be put in places that don't seem to make a lot of sense, which can be a little frustrating when you're getting started. Now I know you guys are going to want to know how I feel that it stacks up against the 4-movie theater, since that's the projector that won the shootout last year. Well, the Awol is significantly brighter, even though the 4-movie produced a more cinematic image in a darker room. So this is really going to come down to personal preference, but as I always personally say, I think it's more important for an ultra short throw projector to be bright and vivid, since people are often going to use it in a living room, and this is truly where the Awol shines. And aside from brightness, another thing that stands out is the focus uniformity, which is significantly better than the 4-movie. Now with that being said, the 4-movie theater still produces a fantastic image, and you get that for almost half the price of the Awol, so it's still a strong contender. So what about the LG HU915QB? Well, the LG is more cinematic with better contrast, great black levels, and fantastic HDR. On the other hand, it's not as bright as the Awol, it produced a good amount of rainbow effect, and it had pretty bad input lag. So in a dark room with movies, the LG tends to look better, but if you're a gamer or you have a room with a lot of ambient light, then you might prefer the Awol. But overall, I think the Awol Vision 3500 is a fantastic projector. Now again, it's not perfect, but as long as you have deep pockets, a little patience with the menus, and you don't mind using a third-party video streamer, I think the Awol is a solid buy. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this video. Hopefully you found it helpful. As always, if you did, go ahead and make sure you mash that like button for me. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon so you don't miss any new videos. And I know you guys keep asking me over and over again for the Epson LS11000 video, and it actually just came in recently, so I will be posting that video soon. So again, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on that video. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video.